Hello, Blazor fans. Welcome back to another episode of Blazor State Has Changed. It is the official release of Blazor this week. We saw the launch of Blazor at Build. So we've got the official capability to build Blazor applications for line of business. We have the full support of Microsoft now. So that is great to hear. We're finally out of the preview stages, right? So pardon me while I do a little housekeeping. And we'll get into some code almost immediately here because I have some work that I need to finish up for an upcoming webinar that I'll tell you about. Might want to join me for that because we're going to rebuild some of this stuff again from scratch, but I need to get the fundamentals down so I can build my application for the upcoming webinar. So again, I'm trying to fix something off screen here, so just give me 1 second. There we go. Just making sure the stream is up and running. Hey, Chris, how are you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining me on the show. We're just going to do some Blazor work today. I'm working on a project that is part of a big event that I'm having. If you go to tiny URL, blazing-summer, I'll paste this in the chat as well. So it's tinyurl.com/blazing-summer. If you go there, you should find the Blazing into Summer with Telerik landing page. So the first week of June is going to be focused primarily on Blazor. I'm going to be streaming from the Code It Live channel and from C# Fritz's channel on Friday. And then we have a webinar on Tuesday, so it's a full packed week of stuff. I'm going to go over the Blazor basics on Monday, June 1st, and then I will work on the full stack application that you're going to see today. Go over the details of how to do CRUD operations and paging and sorting and filtering using Entity Framework, so you can register for the webinar there. Wednesday, I will be joined by the one and only Daniel Roth. We're going to talk about progressive web applications on the Code It Live channel. So we're going to co-stream there. Chris Santi will join me on Thursday. We're going to talk about authentication and role-based access and those sorts of things on Thursday, June 4th. And then Friday, jump onto the C# Fritz channel and join me and Jeff. We're going to talk about the best packages, NuGet packages on GitHub, and we'll look at some of the cool things that are out there as far as NuGet packages. So it's going to be a packed week. That's the first week of June, so I need to get prepared. I need some demo projects to show for these events, and that's what I'm working on today. I've got latest bits of Blazor and Telerik UI for Blazor. So there's lots of stuff here that I'm working on. A lot of data grids right now. I'm going to try to get some more views in here. I probably won't get to those today. But right now I'm doing some refactoring and code cleanup. So that's where I'm at. If you have any questions, hey, Curious Drive, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. You guys have any questions or comments or ideas? Feel free to float them my way in the chat room. I'll give you a quick tour of the app that I'm refactoring. Also, thanks for the follows. I saw a couple come in before the show. Fudgeboy2000, RK and Dat. I don't know if that's supposed to be a whole name or not, but thank you for following. And then here, Fan Ray Media, thank you for the follow as well. So is it possible to load all of the data using grid without paging? So if you wanted to load all of the data in the data grid and disable paging, yes, you can absolutely do that. If we look at my employee page here, if I want to turn off paging, all I have to do is remove paging or turn this to false. Let's rerun the app. And now the page that I'm looking at here, let's see, employees should now be paging free. So there's all of our paging. Now, depending on how many records you have, that could be a bad idea. So, for example, on the first page, I've got sales. This is 20,000 records. You do not want to pull in 20,000 records to put all of those on one page. In the process of converting a Silverlight application to Blazor, 20K, yeah, you're not going to want to pull in 20,000 records into a page. What you could do instead is enable virtualization, and that will eliminate the paging, but it will also cut down on the amount of records that you're showing at one time. So let me turn this back to true real quick. Virtual. Think about virtualization. I'm trying to remember how to re-enable that. Scroll mode, I think it is. Grid scroll mode, virtual. There we go. So actually I need to remove this altogether, I believe. Try that. There may be more to it than just flipping that switch, but the general idea is, yeah, I broke something there. You go to demos.telerik.com, you'll see a demo of virtualization. Virtual scrolling. So the idea is you have 20,000 records you want to show, but you don't want to show them all at once. And if I scroll a little bit, you'll see the bars show up for a second there while it's loading in that data. It's lazy loading everything. And let's view the source code on that one. We need a page size and a height, I believe. So let me just see if I have page size. I do not. Probably why I have the error. So we need to tell it how many items to pull into a page at once. Let me see what the error is here. We have a host from Code It Live. That's our Telerik channel there. Okay, so I have to have a height and row height set for this to work. So I need the page size, row height, because it needs to know how high the UI is. So let's see what we've got here. I'll copy what we have in the documentation here. So you just need to turn on the right features and you can get that enabled. And then you can scroll through those. There we go. So it's going to load those in virtually. So you're going to get a lot better performance. If you need to see 20, 30,000 rows of data at once, I would use Blazor server side, and it's going to choke Blazor WASM at the current rate that it can process things. So there is a little performance hit for taking and using the WebAssembly stuff. So you might notice that a data grid with, you know, tens of thousands of columns chokes a little bit. Start of the week for you, Mr. Magoo. Welcome to the show. Silverlight's good till October 2021. So you get a little bit of time to wait for some things to mature. That's good. What color scheme am I using for Visual Studio? I like all the orange. Thank you, FanRay Media. That's actually a custom design that I made. You can find that. Let me see if I've got. Hang on. I've got very few bot commands. I think this may be one of them. No, my bot did not respond to that. So let me grab it really quick. It is on the Visual Studio Marketplace. Let's get this command window out of the way. So if you want to use that theme, you can install it here. Just select the dark theme from the menu afterwards. There's actually a light and a dark in that package, something I created. It may need an update. I have to look at this week. A new version of Visual Studio 2019 dropped, and I think it broke some of the themes on certain views. So, like, for example, and I think these are because they're new UI screens for Visual Studio. So if I create, say, a branch, it comes up and it's kind of, see how it's kind of like half themed. Some of it's even illegible. So I need to go back and re-roll the theme for the latest version of Visual Studio and re-upload it. So I'll admit there's some breaking changes with the latest version of Visual Studio with this theme. So I expect to look at that over the weekend, and hopefully I can get a new version of it uploaded, but it is something that I use myself, so I'm going to keep it updated. What is a Blazor app? Help HDK. A Blazor application is a full stack C# framework that lets you build Blazor applications with .NET technologies, and it runs the .NET code on the client. So you do not have to use JavaScript when you're working with Blazor. When can we expect WASM to fully support large data without any choke? Using Telerik UI, Silverlight for the past 10 years, happy with large data sets. That's a tricky question. That is a little bit out of our influence. So this is a WebAssembly .NET framework kind of problem right now. It runs the code in interpreted mode, which is slower than native code running, say, on the desktop or server in .NET. It's also slower than its JavaScript counterparts. So there is a performance hit that you're taking for being able to run .NET in the browser. Those performance hits usually aren't apparent unless you have a ton of components on the page. However, the caveat is a data grid, is very much tons of components. So if I look at a data grid that is, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this one's 6, but say 5 by 20,000, you've got 5 by 20,000 components because each cell is a component. And the more components you add, the slower it gets, and things like virtualization help alleviate that, but you're not going to throw 20,000 records on a page and expect it to be highly interactive in Blazor as of right now. So I think there's some improvements that have to happen to the framework in the way that WebAssembly is able to process the .NET libraries. I know it's something they're looking forward to fixing in .NET 5. There's some features that were added to the compiler recently that make me believe that this is part of addressing the issue. So I don't know if you saw the release that mentioned compile time. I'm trying to remember what this is called. I can find the article. Trello, I have it on my Trello board somewhere. talked about this on the Code It Live channel just the other day. Let's see here. What is this called? Yeah, I can't find it. Why? There's a compiler feature that they just added. And now I can't find the link here. Let's see if this is it. It's the only one without a description. No, I've got it linked here somewhere. Yeah, source generators. That's what it's called. So I believe this is something that will be used to alleviate some of those problems that I talked about. So there will be an opportunity for source generators to change how some of the code is compiled, maybe compile some things to WebAssembly so they run natively in WebAssembly. So we'll see if this does anything in the future, but it's going to be a .NET 5 thing, I think, before performance comes up a bit. I mean, it's not where performance is bad in Blazor. You can see this application I've got here is running in, let's see, that's a failed demo. Let's just close the browser out, refresh it. I mean, it comes up nice and fast like you'd expect from a modern application. I can do the usual scenarios like showing data in a data grid. This one has 18,000 records, but see, I'm not showing them all at once. I'm able to do paging, sorting, filtering, all that stuff in real time. I can edit things. I can upload files. I can do all that stuff. And I can have charts and graphs and all that good stuff in here as well. And it won't slow things down. But if I were to spam columns to where you can't even, or rows where you can't even see beyond the page, you think you're going to have a bad day. So let's see. Let me go revert this page back. And I don't have, why am I not getting my undo? There we go. So we'll put that one back to the way it was. And I'm just doing some code cleanup. Oh, you're very welcome. Questions are definitely welcome. Doing some code cleanup today. You can see all the little red checks. Some of this stuff not super interesting so far, but definitely looking for places where I can refactor some more interesting stuff. One thing that's nice about this demo app is that it has a full like seeding capability on the database. So it's a demo, and I want people to be able to download it when it's ready. It is available on GitHub. It's not quite ready yet, but when you get it, you should be able to download it, run it, and the database will automatically initialize, and you'll get a nice looking app. So that first load might take a little while because it's loading like those 20,000 data points that I was talking about. It's actually grabbing those from a, some of this stuff's hard coded, but some of it is coming from a CSV file. It's easier if I do, let's see, collapse to definitions. We look at seeding sales. This actually goes out to a folder and grabs a CSV file and pulls it in and populates the database the first time around. So you get a nice application you can play with. So I'm just trying to clean this guy up a bit and get some of the stuff in here I'm not using out. Any dead code needs to be kind of ejected out of this. There's quite a bit of stuff in here right now because I ran through tons of different examples to try to compile this this thing out. So you're unable to debug Blazor WASM when Windows authentication creates a WebAssembly.NET Core hosted template, and Windows authentication is enabled to true. I have not run into that yet. We're going to explore authentication in more detail during the webinar. So that might be something that we need, or not webinar, but the week of Blazor. It might be something that we need to look into and see. I also have Daniel Roth coming on the show in a couple weeks, and maybe I can pick his brain about that. I haven't run into that myself, but I haven't tried either, so. Just dropping a bunch of using statements in this thing. Whenever you create a new class, it seems to just like spam using statements in where you just don't need them. So just trying to clean some of that up. Let's see what we got in startup. I think some things are put there by convenience too, like system.link is in startup. People or whoever created the templates assuming you're just going to use it. And I never made use of it, so I'm just going to drop it. It's kind of a moot point these days to put all these using statements in just in case you might need them. Because if you do run into a place where you need something, you just control period. And it will add those for you. So I think about removed most of these from my app. There's a ton of them. Holy cow. Let's see. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see if I've got any. Like these are plain class objects. Don't need system.text or generic collections. Like, why is that stuff there by default? Get that out of there. Oh, this is always fun. Class1.cs. I can delete that. There we go. Looks like I got. Yeah, let's remove these. And I'll recompile. Everything should be good. And then we can focus on something else next. And Curious Drive says debugging's working good for him in that scenario. Curious Drive has some great videos out on YouTube, by the way. If you go to YouTube and just search for Curious Drive, you'll find them. Lots and lots of great learning materials out there from Curious Drive. All right, I did a lot of code cleanup. Let's see what the change log looks like. I'm still learning to navigate these new Git tools that are in Visual Studio. If you look down at the right-hand corner, let's see, my face is over this. Let me turn my mug off for a minute so you can see this properly. Let's see, where is that at in my stream platform here? Hang on. Let's see, where is Ed's face? Where is it? Camera off. There we go. All right, turn myself off for a minute so you can see this. In the lower right-hand corner, they've added these new Visual Studio GitHub integration points. And if you click on the pencil icon, you can see all of your changes. You can create new repos and see your repository name here. You can see your branch and do some actions here. And then you can see how many changes your branch is ahead of master here. That one you can't click on. The pencil you can. That one brings up like a menu for creating repositories, I think. And then that one brings up a menu as well. It's odd that you can't click on that one. So if I click on this one, and again, they broke my theme. How dare they do that? I did a lot of changes here. This is all just code cleanup. So I'm just clearing out anything that was unused in there. And then now see I'm ahead by one commit, one unpushed commit. Control E, Control C, I guess will push it, but they let you click here to bring something up, but nothing happens when you click here. It's kind of odd. They're still working on it, I think. But at least it gives you Control E, Control C. Is that? Yeah, I didn't get a I didn't get anything when I pressed Control E, Control C, so that didn't help much. But it's also up here, so there's UI for doing pushes all over the place. There's also UI for it here, so you can push here, you can push here, but you can't push there. But we'll go ahead and just click one of these and get it out of the way. Any suggestion of how to use Signal R to update multiple Telerik Blazor components on a page and highlight the change and then set CSS style updated data to regular CSS style? Wow, that's quite the tall order. I don't have any Signal R demos yet for Telerik UI for Blazor. My suggestion would be to reach out to support and see if they have anything in the works, or they might want to add something to the documentation regarding Signal R. I don't think we've invested in doing research on Signal R yet. We just haven't had that many customer requests for it. Signal R is really new to Blazor, oddly enough. You'd think with the Blazor being based on Signal R, if you're using it server side, it would have been out of the box, but it's not. They just added an SDK for Signal R in the last couple of releases, so we haven't really done anything in regards to that yet. I'd like to know the answer to that question myself. But again, support ticket would be the best route, I think, for that. I was able to update the data in Telerik Blazor Grid. It happened so fast that no, you just don't realize the data updates in real time. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you need like a notification that comes up. I have a suggestion for you. So here's something that you might be able to use. Do this. If you go to here, I'm going to open up a brand new Visual Studio instance, and I'm going to say create a new project. Blazor application, next. Hit next again. Oh, actually, sorry, back. I want the Telerik Blazor application, next. Just spam next until you create your app. Choose, it doesn't matter if it's server or client. Client might be a little more appropriate, I guess, if you're using Signal R, but it's really not going to matter, I don't think, on this. But click finish. And then when that loads up, oh, not a notification. Make the updated data bold font and set. Okay. All right. So what you don't want is a notification. So this may not help you. I'll show you a trick though. I think I might have something for you. So it's going to be a little hacky, but it works. So here's the first suggestion. You said you don't want a notification. I'm going to show you a notification for a second anyway, just to show you where it's at. If you click more info, you'll see a notification pop right here. So we do have notification capabilities with the animation container component. So you can create an animation that plays, and you can trigger that through asynchronous code. But if you don't want, there is something that you can do with CSS. Let's see. If you look up CSS transitions, so we'll play for a minute. I want a, let's see. I don't want that. Let's try it ourselves. So I want to like highlight something and like fade it or change trying to remember the wording around this. Is it transition? Easing. Delay. Transform. Let's see what else we've got in here. If I can find the right one, I can show you exactly how to do this. Done it before. Oh, I think I know where to find this. So let's see if I can... Mr. Magoo, if you're still in the chat room, do you remember the demo that we did? I kind of like jumped in on your GitHub repo and added something like this. Let's see. It's not CSS Builder. I'm just going to use this to jump to your profile. I have something out there to answer this for you. I know it. Oh, you've got too many projects for me to look through, Mr. Magoo. Yeah, there's a way to do this. Well, no, it's not Blazor bindings. Oh, shoot. I don't remember where this was, Mr. Magoo. All right, so the idea here... Let's see if I can find an example. Yeah, there we go. All right, this will work. So I just need to borrow this CSS here. So you can do something like this, where you trigger CSS to highlight it. I think you can do it without animation, though. That's not quite what I was looking for either. There it is. Transition. It's not background, though. Or it's not position and size. So let's try another one. You can do it with a transition. It's actually a fun little challenge if I can find the right one. And what you can do is you give it a highlight CSS, and then it works really easy on something like this. Where you can change the background color back and forth. That's going down a rabbit hole. Let's see if this works. So let's go back to the default Blazor app for a second. And what you can do is let's dump this index page. Let's clear this out so it has nothing on it. And the idea is you want the text to kind of like pulse. So it gets the user's attention for a second. And you could totally do this with Blazor. I've done it before. I wish I could find the example I've already prepared, so I don't have to do this all again. But so you do this, and then basically need to append that style to the thing that you want to do the animation on. So this is slowly, when I hover on it, it turns red. That's really slow. So you don't want to do it that slow. But let's see, do 1 second, 0.5 seconds. Let's do 0.5. That's 0.2, 0.5, half a second maybe. So you can do this, and I know it's on hover, but you can actually change there. So that's kind of quick, like that. So what you can do, I'm trying to remember how I did this before. You give it another class like highlight, and then when CSS, or the browser rather, sees the so what you can do is toggle this, right? And you're going to programmatically add highlight here. And when that gets added, the browser will then see there's a difference between foo and foo.highlight, and foo has a transition on it, so it will trigger the transition. And you can be clever about how these transitions work. And you can actually animate it to change the color, you know, from one color and then back. And then what you need to do though is you need to keep toggling that value. It can get a little tricky, but what you can do here is you can say button at on click, and we're going to do some event like that. And then we need to code it up. So we'll put it in a code block. And then we would say, put code, there we go, highlight equals, so we're going to add highlight to the class. Actually, let's try it this way. Don't break it. We'll do foo highlight here. There's many ways you could apply this style, but basically when we do this, actually want to do foo, and then when we trigger some event, we'll say CSS equals foo highlight. We'll just replace the whole thing. All right, let's try that. So we're going to click the button. It's going to toggle the CSS value. So see, the hover's gone, and the trigger did nothing. Darn it. I know I've done this before. Foo highlight. I got the right value. All right. I know I've done this before. Come on. Why is... Did I... Oh, I know what it is. My CSS selector sucks. It should be like that. Yeah, so you can do that. That should do it. There. How about that? And if you use CSS animations, you can make it pulse back. There's a transition as well. I can't remember the right transition for it, but basically it will turn it from one color and then turn it back if you do it right. And I had an example, but it's so long ago. I wish Mr. Magoo was still here. He would know which one I'm talking about. I wonder if it's in my GitHub history. But I've done it to where we were trying to show what the different data binding was like in Blazor. And I forked a repo and did the highlighting effects for him. But I can't for the life of me remember what this was called. It wasn't to do... Gosh, it's been so long ago. Blazor binding? Ah, I found it. I found it. Here we go. Blazor binding components. New. Still hosted somewhere, I wonder. I don't see the link. Blazor bindings, pages, sample binding. Good old Mr. Magoo. State has changed CSS. So the CSS for this should be in here. And if I go into root, CSS, site, where are you hiding? Great question, by the way. So here is the code. That's code highlighting. Oh, so I did use keyframe animations. So here's the animations for you. Here, I'll just link you to this. Check that CSS out. And basically, you have ping on and ping off are the two CSS values. Here, I'll highlight those for you as well. So if we grab this block of code here from CSS, I'll copy the permalink there. What this does is there's a class called ping on, a class called ping off, and then I think we put a date stamp on it as well. And then it plays an animation. And for the animation to fully work right, you have to have two of them. I'm trying to remember why there was two of them. There's a reason there's two. But it'll play ping on and then it highlights yellow and then it pings off and turns back to the other color. So you can use that. And then let's see if there's a component part of this. I mean, it was really simple in concept. It's not as difficult as it sounds. So, yeah, we set the value here. Let's see if there's a base class or anything. Refresh. Where's that coming from? You see how old this is. It says functions instead of code. So whenever state has changed is called, we're setting the ping on and ping off values of some CSS classes in here. This was really early on to show people how data binding and stuff affected the DOM. But that's the idea. If you take that with the CSS, then you can pretty much do it. Those two things there. Whoa, this has changed a lot. So I don't know if this is the same. Holy cow. Let's see, refresh. Yeah, this... Am I zoomed like way in or something? Why is it so awkward? Yeah, I think the CSS is broken on this or something. This looks just really bad. I don't think this was the intentions. of Mr. Magoo. I think this is grabbing a CSS style from another site of his. Looks like it's missing something, to be honest. Let's see if there's a console errors. No. So I think you might have stumbled onto the right thing, but this looks like it may be an old project of his that, while it used to use that, yeah, it's the CSS got hijacked by another page or something. Yeah, I think he tried to launch maybe some other demos on the same domain, and it's broken some of it. I'll have to ask Mr. Magoo what's up with the page. Yeah, it's still in an old preview. There could be something with that too. You're right. He's got some really cool demos in here, though. But anyhow, I think that'll answer your question. Let's see. Is it Neo Ash? My new screen over here is really small. It's hard to read names off of. But those CSS files I linked you to are the real magic there. Because that's going to toggle the values for you. But this is the general concept of it, though. An event happens, say a SignalR thing happens, and it just changes the CSS value. And then there's a CSS animation that changes between the transition of those two things. Yeah, you should be able to use it to pulse a grid row. I never turned myself back on here. I'm still hiding, and there we go. Turn some other random thing on with it. What is that? There we go. Hey, I'm back. Now you can see my camera in the corner. I was covering up the Git stuff with my face earlier. It was a little bit of a sidebar, but I appreciate the question, NeoAsh. That was a good one. I'm glad I actually remembered that I did something with that a while ago. CSS is your friend. Sometimes the easiest route is the simplest one. So just adding a CSS class when the data refreshes should be enough. You can do that through a template row. There's a couple ways to do templates. Let's see. You could template out the entire row and make the entire row flash. You could also update a cell. At any rate, you're going to have a template most likely to do that. Now, column templates are really easy, but they're going to make your code more verbose. I think you're going to need a row template in your project. And the row template means you're going to take over the responsibility of handling every row or column in the row. So you're going to have a TD element for every single column in your grid, which I don't know how many columns across you have, but you're going to be responsible now for each one. And then you should be able to wrap that in an element that has that class that you want to pulse the color off of. That should do the trick for you. Alrighty, let's see. Back to the app I was working on. So I did some simple refactoring. Let's see here. We've got a page. So each one of these pages has a different purpose. And I think I should put some metadata around what the purpose of each of these is. So let's go to pages and look at sales real quick. So what does this page do? this is going to be the demo page for remote paging, sorting, and filtering. Hey, it's Mr. Peter Morris. Welcome. Nice to see you again. So this actually has several demos on it. The first demo is, and let's do this. I really need to comment this stuff. What did I just hit? Hit undo there. I don't want to do that. Whatever I just hit. So I'm going to shrink this down and get these things side by side so I can write some comments here. I wonder how I should comment this out. Maybe with just some standard HTML comments, or maybe something more complex. I don't know. But demo 1 here is this page uses remote sorting and filtering. So this is really cool. So what this page does is it has a database with 20,000 records in it. I don't want to show all that at once, and I don't want to query all that at once because I want my server to remain performant and the client as well. So I'm going to show 10 records at a time, and you can see it's pulling 18,000 records, or 180,000, no, 18,035 records, okay? That's how many records are in the data set that matches this filter. And if I page, this is locked up for some reason. That delay is not supposed to be there. It's probably something to do with something running in the background. We'll refresh this. If I page, immediately it jumps to the page and it'll say like 31 of 40, and it's keeping in sync with the back end with paging and filtering and all that stuff. Now, if I add a filter to it, say I want to see all of the muffins that were bought over a certain time period, I can do that. And the data set comes down to 100 or 891. I can also change the date range here, which this is actually another separate demo, but is it going to start messing with me now? Oh, I might have to look at the filter. There might be a bug here. I think I've run into a bug with filtering. Let's clear the muffins. Let's try that again. Let's filter. Okay, so my custom filter is clashing with the built-in filters. So I'll have to take a look at why that happens. Another thing this does is it sorts. So I can sort, I can filter. You get the idea. But what's special about it, look at that, I narrowed it down to 1 record somehow. Hit the holy grail there. What's cool about this is it's doing it in the most efficient way possible. So if you look at the grid processing portion of this demo, there's an IEnumerable of sales and a total. Those are wrapped up in a little helper class that is a view model. So it's sales view model. That's just our data and our total. And then we call to the server, we say await post JSON async. We're using post because we're going to pass a bunch of data to the server. And that data is going to contain filtering, sorting, all that stuff. So if I look at this request object here, so if I do args.request, you can actually see it all. There is the sorts, so all the sorting that we have on the page, filters that are on the page, that is all going out, groups. All that stuff gets passed off to the server for it to run some queries on. So I'm going to call API/sales. If I go over to my server side, controller sales, I have a matching post controller here that's going to receive that data source request, the thing that has the filtering, the grouping, and all that stuff in it. And then I can call dbcontext.sales, and then a simple extension method called toDataSourceResultsAsync, and it's going to take in all of the filters and all that stuff, and it's going to turn that into an Entity Framework query, which Entity Framework will then turn into the appropriate SQL query and only get the data that belongs to that group, filter, page, etc. Then it produces a data source result, which a data source result is kind of a generic object, or not generic, a dynamic object. It has the data, it has the total, and any aggregate information, and that gets mapped back to my view model. So the server and the client don't even need to share the same view model when we pass back the results, because the serialization that happens in Blazor will take care of that for us. So it'll do the mapping automatically. Which library is the toDataSourceResultsAsync in? It is in the Telerik data source extensions. So that is in, let's see, it is in, I can't find the using statement there. It's going to be in here. Yeah, it's going to be under Telerik.DataSourceExtensions namespace. So it comes with the data grid. You have to add the Telerik data source library to your server-side project, and then once you have that, you can call it. So that'll do the serialization to a dynamic object, and then you deserialize it into a static, strongly typed. A strongly typed object. Serialization will do the mapping for you, and that will give me back my sales data and my total, and then the grid picks that data up here under the data property and the total count property. So once it has those two things, it can repopulate the data that's in the grid. So all I have to do is cast that data off to the model, and it will refresh the grid automatically, and it will have all the new data that is scoped to that filter and sorting and all that good stuff. How is statelessness managed? State of the grid with the grid on the server. So it's being passed, the state of the grid is being passed off to the server back and forth with that data source request. When we return a dynamic object in our API, will it not mess up Swagger response object docs? I have no idea. I'm not using Swagger right now. That's a great question because I haven't jumped on the Swagger bandwagon yet. So if you look at the data source result object, this is what it looks like. So you're going to get an IEnumerable of data. So it's not typed. The reason it's not typed is because it can be used with JavaScript. So by default, it's just not typed. Elliot Brand, thanks for subscribing for 3 months. That's amazing. Really appreciate that. Glad to have you back in the chat room as well. So hopefully, if you guys can't see, by the way, let me know. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So this is what the data source result looks like. It's got data, total, aggregates, and errors. It's an enumerable of data, so it doesn't have the data type. It's not an enumerable of T. So I'm not sure how that's going to look to Swagger, but I can tell you that it is a compatibility reason that it is written that way, because this is also compatible with JavaScript, and we can use Kendo UI with that same API response. What you can look at as well is we can do Fiddler. I should probably install Swagger and start testing that out because I know our customers are going to want to use Swagger too, and I just don't know enough about it. So I've got Fiddler up, and if I go here and I change my page, I don't know why I'm getting lag on that first request. Must be establishing a connection or something again. Come into sales, and you can see this is the information I'm sending out. So I have a transaction date, begin and end date. That's my filter for the date range. And then what I get back is this. So I get back JSON data, and it's an object with the with 4 properties in it, and I have my total and my data. So data could be anything, and the system that I'm using to get the data back is could possibly be JavaScript. So this is compatible both ways. Yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Magoo. That's a good point. So after the application sets for a little bit, it's probably a what is that called? A pool, yeah, connection pool that gets disposed of. So it's got to renew a connection pool and all that good stuff, and it's running on not like a full IIS instance. So it's just like the IS Express. It's not really that efficient. So it takes a second to get that new response back. Swagger though, I'm not sure, how does Swagger annotate what type of data it is when it's just raw JSON data like this? Let's see. Oops. So you might have to manually document it. I know there's some automated stuff that came with the last version of .NET Core that's supposed to help you with that stuff. So it's probably not going to by convention document that, because it's called data source result. That's what you're going to see probably in Swagger, is it's a data source result that you're getting back. Data source result's not typed, so you're not going to see like data source result of sales or anything like that. It's just going to be data source result is the actual action that I'm returning, the type. So if Swagger is picking up the documentation from the types, that's the type you're going to see. You're going to see data source request coming in, data source result coming out, but you're not going to have a type other than that. I think data source request doesn't have the data type either because it's looking for the filtering and sorting information. Now, what you can do is you can create a custom object. Let's see, who asked that, by the way? I want to help address that person. Who was asking about Swagger? I'm trying to go back through this. Oh, okay. I think it was Neo Ash again. Yeah. So what you can do is, if you don't want to use this data source result, we actually have some documentation on our website about this, and that might be a better way to do it, considering that question that just came up. So if I go to our docs. You're killing it with the good questions today, Neo Ash. I like these kind of questions. Got me thinking. Grid, manual data source operations. We have a GitHub. Is being updated with new demos, but basically you have a type that you can just assign things to. Where is it? It's a really easy fix. I actually deleted it from the project a few minutes ago too. I didn't think I'd need it. Here it is. So if we go to the shared, WASM shared data envelope, you can use a generic thing. You can call it whatever you'd like. We called it data envelope in here. So you can do this. Let's put this in the app. Shared add class. This would probably fix your Swagger question. So what this is, it's just a map that takes the, it's a generic abstraction that takes the data source result and maps it. So this is really simple. So we can say data envelope of T. Let's kill these using statements again. So I'd come back in here, instead of returning a data source result, what I can do is this. So I'll say var data equals new data envelope of T. And what this will do is it'll add that metadata. So this will describe that we're going to say this is a sale. So it's going to be sales data that comes back. And then inside of this new object, we'll say that the current page data equals result dot data. Let's see, we need to transform that as well. So we'd have to say data as sale. So you'd have to cast it. It's not going to let me cast an IEnumerable. Oh, this needs to be. And enumerable of sale. Let's see if we can do that way. I'm going to need to look at the docs again. I got to get rid of the semicolon too. That's not right. Total item count equals result dot total. That would work. I need to figure out what the right mapping is here. Oh, missing namespace. I took generic collections out. Let's see. Let's try this one. That doesn't seem to be making it happy. So maybe it is data dot of type sale. See if that one does it. No, it doesn't like that either. To list at the end. Is that it? Oh, I need to drop the... So that would probably fix it. I know it's a little more work. So I think that would do it for you. So what you can do is you can transform that generic IEnumerable into sales, and then you would return a data envelope of T, and that would then have the typing information. And you can use this data envelope of T on both sides. Like that. And since data envelope of T is typed, hence the T, you should get your Swagger information auto-generated, I would hope. Again, I need to test that. I need to learn a little bit more about Swagger before I can test it, though. I've seen it demoed a few times and never just really implemented it to see. It's seen controllers used on some Blazor apps, but never used them on Blazor server side. Is this a new approach or... so this is a WebAssembly application. If you do File, New Project, and select the hosted application, Elliot, this is the type of application that you would get. So NeoAsh, looks like you're using an envelope as well, page, this something result. So it looks like we're on the same page, no pun intended, about how to do that. Just using straight interfaces, haven't worked with WASM yet. Yeah, WebAssembly is nice. Missing a, or was missing a semicolon. Oh, I am missing a semicolon. Thank you. So we could do that. So this approach works as well. Omar, thanks for the heads up on the bug. You need to remove the action result part from the response type. Is that for Swagger to work, Peter? Okay, I was gonna say that maybe that's a Swagger thing, but this should actually work. And then if we go back to the Razor page, or Razor component part of this, we could ditch the view model here. We wouldn't need that anymore. And we would just say we're going to receive a data envelope of T here, which is sale. And I need to put a using statement now. What is it doing? Oh, I also need it there. So I might take this approach now that it's been mentioned. So I was asking our sales engineer about this. What would the preferred path be here? Do we use the data envelope idea, or do we just let people cast it however they like and let Jason do the heavy lifting? And I think this wraps a pattern around it that people would like better. And it looks like it'll support some things I hadn't thought about, like Swagger. So I'm actually going to put this in and keep it in. Data envelope. Let's see. I need to fix my import statement. So I have Blazing Coffee client shared. I also need Blazing Coffee shared. I have shared models, but it didn't go under the models namespace. It doesn't belong there either. I'll just put it up on the root for now. I may have to refactor that out. And then we need a new data envelope here to satisfy our null state, or it's going to go nuts on that. Let's see what happens here. Might still need to add another null check on that. Ah, come on. I don't have a... Oh, this is actually a different... It's current page data and page total count. That should do it. I'll get rid of those two errors. Just looking through chat again here. Prefer to return an OK object result of data type of data, then that would return a 200 response. You could do produce response type attribute. Swagger will get the schema Info from the JSON response. So yeah, Omar, I think that's something I need to add to the project here. I need to research that a little bit. That's really good advice. I need to get more into the Swagger stuff, honestly. Swashbuckler. The grid component is the Telleric UI for Blazor grid component. I know I've seen this before. Yeah, this is... Now, wondering... Yeah, this has been updated recently. I thought they were building some of this in to .NET. I guess they didn't add it as... I guess it's still optional. Yeah, this is something that we need to cover. It's all very familiar to me, but I need to play around with this sometime. Hopefully before the webinar even. You think I can be an expert by next Tuesday? Not next Tuesday, I have a week. I have a week to learn this. Yeah, I need to look at this again. You guys are great. I'm a little bit behind the times on the web API development stuff. I need to catch up. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate the compliments on the Telleric Blazor data grid. Yeah, everybody seems to really like Swagger a lot. So I know there was some efforts being made to make it like the default scenario on .NET, on ASP.NET, but I can't remember where that all landed. I know there's an API command line offering as well. You can do it in 5 minutes. It's 2 steps. All right, Mr. Peter Morris. You have a lot of faith in me, my friend. Let's see. Well, let's take a look. So the first thing you need is a package installation. All right, let's do something here. Let's do a new branch. And again, I hate that this window is broken. I can't tell what's happening in here. Why did they make this change? I don't know. They broke my theme. So let's add Swagger. I can't tell if it's being checked out or not. I think it is. It didn't check it out. I have to manually check it out. All right, so let's try to add Swagger. So let's see. On our server, we need to add a dependency. We'll do add NuGet package. And you'll notice that I'm a little behind on this. I need to do an update of all the packages as well. So Swashbuckle API, ASP.NET Core. Open API is the other terminology I've heard being used. Swagger/Open API. So we'll add this NuGet package. Is that the one? Yeah, ASP.NET Core. We'll install that. Latest stable version should be good. Why does this say 5.0? They put a hard-coded version in there, huh? Thanks for the follow, Omar. Then we need our using statement, the obligatory using statement. That goes in our startup class. So we'll accept that. We'll go over to startup. Startup. Find startup. We'll add our using statement. And then we need to add Swagger to the service collection. So under, let's see, it was, finally clicked Visual Studio Code. Yeah, configure services. We shall add our Swagger service. Title My API version 1. And what did I break? Because configure's busted now. What? What did I miss? I fat fingered something. What was it? Expected in a file definition. Oh, I think I added too many. Yeah, too many curlies ended up in there somehow. Let's build that again. Let's see if I can be an expert in 5 minutes, like Mr. Magoo said. What's up, Chicken Wang? Welcome back. Yep, Elliot, you're right on point. I missed a curly brace there. They're out to get me today. Configure. Here, I'll just copy this whole block. So we need to put the middleware in the pipeline. Put the middleware in. Doesn't really matter where it goes. Swagger, blah, blah, blah. My API version 1. I think I can name this whatever I like. v1 swagger.json. And then we need to add the route prefix here. Hey, I'm not reading any of this documentation, by the way. I'm just copying and pasting. This always gets me into trouble. Like just now, like why did that break that? Am I missing something? Route prefix is missing. Let's see. Route prefix. And then okay, didn't break that time. I must have copied and pasted wrong. I don't know how I did, but I did. Customize. Okay, I don't need to do all that, I don't think. So now I should be able to run my app. Do I need to do anything else to it? Oh, it automatically came up after hitting index HTML. So I imagine I could customize that to not be where it just showed up, because this isn't what I want. So there's all my APIs. Here's sales. And sales gets back request body, yada, yada, yada. No parameters. Schema. That's what it accepts. A data source request object. That's fine. Where's the response? Response is plain text, schema, sales envelope, current page data is a sale. So I think it was Neo Ashigan. Is this the expected documentation results you were looking for? Oh, the default parameter. Which one was that? Up here? Nope. The route prefix? Where is that? Was I getting Mr. Peter Morris and Mr. Magoo mixed up? Sorry about that. Remove the route prefix and it will make the default path. Oh, duh, that part. So that was what was hijacking my route. All right, so we've added Swagger. Let's try that again. Okay, cool. Oh, nothing at this address. Yeah, that... Oh, there it goes. Why did it... Why did it initialize nothing at that address? Try that again. Control F5. Hands off this time. Okay, that was a glitch in the matrix. All right. So, we've got our Swagger API here. This is what it looks like. It's going to be under Swagger now. So all of our stuff comes back like this, and the response 200 success schema. It's a country. There's all the properties. So I think that when I changed it over to the data envelope, then that fixed the issue that could have potentially come up where it was too generic and it wouldn't have documented the API well. So now in our response, we can see that we have a schema that is a sales data envelope. Nice how the Swagger system took the generic form of data envelope of T and moved the syntax or the name sale out of the T and put it in front, so it's a sale data envelope. I like that. Mr. Peter Morris, you have still too much faith in me. So yeah, it's what happens? What does this do? Controls, accept header, plain text. All right, not sure what I'm looking at on the media types. I guess that's the media types it supports. Schema. So here at the root, I've got my total item count and my current page data. This is extremely helpful feedback. Nullable, true. Current page data isn't... I thought this was working a moment ago. Oh, there it is. Sale. There. I didn't click far enough down. This is extremely helpful feedback because I was debating with support over whether we should use the data envelope in the examples or just leave it more simplistic. But I think this provides customers with more realistic scenarios and solves more problems than the other version would create. So I'm going to keep this in. We'll keep this in the app. I'll commit that to the main branch. Like this very much. Very cool. Thanks for the suggestion. This one we can try out. This is like... The Swagger stuff is super cool because you can put in an ID number and you can do execute and it'll give you back a sample response, which is really slick. Let's try this one out too. Execute. This is important when you're trying to debug filtering. which is something that I need to do now because my filters are broken. I found a bug. I'm doing some stuff that isn't documented yet, and I may be doing things that are going to break things. So this will come in super handy when I try to debug my filtering problem. So let's look at the filter thing really quick again. Since we're talking about like self-documenting things and all that type of like logging behavior that does. So not only is Swagger going to be helpful for troubleshooting, but check this out. You guys are going to like this. If I go to my data context, database context, that's the initializer. This is on in my app by default, and I wouldn't recommend turning it on unless you need to troubleshoot something, but I'm lost. Where is my coffee context? There it is. My database context here. I'm doing on configuring, and I've enabled, I can move this up to the settings portion of the app that's in like the startup.cs. I've put it in here because it's a demo and I wanted to hard code it in here a little bit. But when, actually that should be at the bottom, shouldn't it? You always want to do that last. We go into Options Builder and I'm turning on a console logger, and I'm also enabling sensitive data logging. So what that means is when I do my entity framework request, so when I call this result, when I apply my request object to the two data source results async, it does some magic. And I wanted to show the magic that's inside the black box. So Swagger is awesome. When I first looked down Curious Drive, and so I don't know how to pronounce your name, but witness my use of points is awesome. And then Curious Drive chimed in with Swagger is awesome. From a distance, again, the screen's kind of tiny, so I thought it said Swagger something about an interview, like I was gonna go have an interview now and be able to pass my interview. Thought you guys were harassing me again about my Swagger knowledge. So what was I saying? If you query the sales table, you're getting this magic thing, and sometimes we like to kind of validate magic in .NET. So I have this extension method, to data source request result async, and I'm passing in filter values and paging values and all this stuff. And I'm expecting it to magically produce not only the entity framework code, but the SQL query code that is going to get the results back without hammering my database to death. So if I'm getting the total result of that query, and I'm also getting the data for that query, I want to make sure as a developer that my entity framework query didn't do something heinous to get that total. So I've enabled this logging capability. And if I go to my my .NET Core server output here, check this out. Let me clear this out. You can already see where this is going probably. I'm going to go, let's ditch Swagger for a minute. I could have done this in Swagger, but I'm just going to do it here on the page. Let's change our filter to, let's change the paging. Let's go to page 6. And again, that lag is not the app. It is .NET doing a .NET thing. And then I don't know why it always switches me off this view, but I want to come into my output from my server again. And this is where the console logger is doing its thing. Check this out, man. And ladies. Don't mean to be not inclusive with that statement. It's just my vernacular sucks. Let's see. Let's look at this command and this command. So 2 queries actually ran when I changed my page. So if we look at the first query, it does a select count. And select count is the appropriate SQL query that we want. We're counting. We don't want it to select all of the actual records. We just want it to count them. And that's going to be a much faster operation than if we did a full select. Now it also does a where statement, and we actually see the values that were passed into the query. So we're passing in the transaction date and another transaction date and checking greater than, less than, getting our range of dates and minimizing the amount of data that's going to be queried. The second query says execute db command, and notice the parameter is 10 and 50. Because remember, these are page sizes of 10 records. So we're doing a skip or an offset in this case. So we're offsetting the number of records that we're going to retrieve back from that SQL query. So we can see those get passed in and the values of them. So this is actually page 6. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to skip the first 50 records, and then I'm going to take the next 10. So a page size of 10. So it's doing the math work for me, and it's producing the query for me. And now I can check to make sure that the parameters are exactly the same. And that's because I turned on that sensitive data logging. If you don't have sensitive data logging, you get a question mark there, which is good because somebody might be like passing a hashed password or some sensitive quote, sensitive information up to your query, and now you're displaying it somewhere. So yes, it's doing server-side SQL querying and paging through Entity Framework. So we have some really brilliant engineers that came up with the code for that. And you can also see the dates here as well. So there's our date range yet again. So the first query does select count. That returns our total. That goes into our total field. The second one is our data, and that returns our set of sales data. And then now we've confirmed that we're doing this in the most efficient way possible. So we're not filtering on data that, we're not grabbing 20,000 records and then sorting through it in C#. We're letting SQL handle it like SQL should. And then it gets put in its appropriate buckets and passed back to the client. The client then deserializes it and everybody's happy. Again, the client needs the total because without that, it can't do the paging and all that good stuff. Yep, let SQL return only the data you need, says DJ Elite. Exactly my point. So if we look deeper into this, this data source result async is really an amazing magical thing. And if you look, it's extending iQueryable, and that is the real important part here. Is it takes iQueryable, which iQueryable is it's going to take the data source request object, and there's no more code here. We could decompile it and look at it, but the secret sauce is the secret sauce, I suppose. What it does is it takes the filter descriptors, we call them. Our engineer Giovanna has been working on this quite extensively. If we look at data source request, it has a, let's see, we need a new one up. Or no, we can just look at request, sorry. Request. We look at the data structure here, we've got filters, and those have an enumerable of filters in it. And then there's also things like the sorting and paging numbers and all that stuff. There is an algorithm that goes through and turns those filters and page numbers and all those things into the proper expressions. And then Entity Framework knows expression trees. An entity framework can look at an expression tree and go, that expression tree should be this SQL. And then it maps that expression tree to the SQL query. That's why we're able to pass this data source request object into entity framework, and it seamlessly just generates SQL code without us having to manually do stuff. If we didn't do that, and the request is nice because it's open-ended. We could program things custom if we really needed to. Maybe I'm not using .NET on the back end. I can pass those values up somewhere. We can do it manually. Maybe I'm not using entity framework, so I can use those values through .NET, and I could say for each result, or item, each foo in request. I'm just kind of showing what this does for us. We could loop over the filters, and then we'd have to do a var of query, and then we'd have to say context dot sales dot where, and we'd have to look for the specific filter and apply it programmatically. That would be a giant pain. It'd be a huge piece of code. You can do that if you absolutely need to for some reason, but it is much easier just to call to data source request async and pass in the values and let that extension method do all the work for you, and then take the data and ship it back down the wire. I wonder if I should, yeah, I'll keep it like this. Normally I would probably refactor this out and just say return here, but this gives you an inspection point. If you're looking at a demo, you want to set a breakpoint, see what's happening in that little space and time. Let's see. Data string, HTTP, expression tree. Yeah, you're right on point there, Peter. It's exactly the routine. Let's look at something else really cool, really fast. I'm going to hang it up here in just a minute. I am starving. I've had meetings since 8:30 this morning, and I need to eat lunch. So one last thing I wanted to show you before we go, and I'm going to merge all this down. I love the Swagger input. That is so awesome. Chat room is amazing today, especially Neo Ash with the hard-hitting questions that made me think outside the box.
Tell me likey. Tell me want wingy.
That's for you, Neo Ash. All right, let's see. One more cool thing that I can show you about this app. I'm going to go into Pages. I need my client side. Client, Pages, Employee, no, Products. I'm using, so I normally use IEnumerable on these things, but I used an observable collection because this is going to be my CRUD demo here. I was trying to annotate some of these things earlier. So this, I'm fat fingering all this. I'm hungry. This is a demo of CRUD operations. And what happens in this demo is we've got a lot of really cool create, update, delete expectations. And what we're doing is we have our products. We want to manage those products. And we may want to upload files and do some editing and create new records, add a new product, all that sort of thing. So if I look at this page, and again, I know these are really data grid heavy, but this is one of our most sought after components. So we've got a lot of, yeah, my fingers are looking for food, not comment buttons on the keyboard. Having expression tree, iQueryable is there. There's a chance it won't be evaluated to SQL. Not sure I follow. But this, I'm using an observable collection in here because this takes out like all of the overhead for me to do like state has changed and worry about things updating correctly. So if I just take my data and cast it to an observable collection, the data grid internally knows what to do with that, and I can do stuff like this. So I can do add product, and we get validation in this nice pop-up box. This is a custom editor too, by the way, so you're able to edit this this pop-up and what shows in it. And then I can say, so Neo Ash, you're going to be a product here. You're a whole product, not a partial product. We'll make you $100. And then notice I've got nutrition info. It says the save, and then I can edit the nutrition information. I'm going to hit update there, and notice it just immediately. And I think this is where you're saying, Neo Ash, it's so responsive that it needs to like flash or something to let people know that there is a change that had happened. So that might be something I look into in another episode. But now I can edit, and now my nutrition info has turned to a select files button. Remember before it had a message. That's because I didn't have a record yet, so I can't assign a file and attach it to something that doesn't exist. So I customized the editor to look at the situation and go, am I editing or am I inserting a new record? If I'm inserting a new record, I can't do the file upload yet, so display a different UI there. So I've got an empty state that shows. Now that I have a record, I can select a file. I'm going to select a file. I'm going to choose a CSV file, and it's going to throw a file not supported error at me. So I can clear that validation out. Select file again. I'm going to choose nutrition information doc. And it uploaded. It went fast. You didn't see the status bar, but if it was a large file, you see the status bar go. Now I can hit update, and it's actually already updated the view because of that observable collection. Before I even hit update, it's attached that file and made the change. So now I click view. Check this out. It's a PDF. I uploaded a doc. Remember that? So now it's a PDF file, and it's attached it here. So I love our components at Telerik, and I use this stuff professionally for so many years. So if I'm excited about it, and again, this isn't like a sales pitch or anything, I just love this stuff. So I'm using this word processing library that comes with Blazor. I could do it client or server side because Blazor is awesome like that. It happens a lot faster on the server. Again, client side Blazor is a little bit slower. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. But you can see this demo yourself, this portion of it. If you go to this page, you can see we're able to convert Word docs into PDFs and lots of other cool stuff with Office docs. So we can convert and load and zip. We could zip files up, compress them. We can do CSVs and Excel sheets and edit them and modify and save and all that good stuff. All happens through the Telerik library. So I edit the file, I select a docs file, I upload the docs file, the server gets it. So let's look at that. To upload it, I've got a custom editor in here. So you'll see editor template. I have a Telerik file upload. I have a set of possible extensions we can accept. You can have a PDF or a doc. And then I have a save URL, which is simply an API endpoint that says products add file. That takes an iForm file interface. So that's what our Telerik upload is going to send it. Oh, we're getting raided by R. Dallas at the end of my show. Oh, we're getting ready to wrap this up. So we're just getting ready to take off soon. We will re-raid, though, in a few moments. So, Vladu MS? Vladu? Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think Surly Dev, we're going to go for another hour. If I do, I'm going to end up passing out here from lack of food. New follower again. Ren. That's why did camel case, folks? I don't want to lecture Ren something or other, but I would love to read your name and I can't. More responsible use of points. That's great. I need to come up with some custom point redemption things. Mr. Steve Smith, R. Dallas, thank you for the raid. Appreciate it. I know, I should see if I can get some food delivered. Yeah, I know we start the same time every week. I need to do more streams. I've been so busy though. I've been so busy with this app and trying to build it that I haven't been able to stream on a regular basis other than Fridays. And then I've got the whole Blazing into Summer event coming up. Let's throw a quick ad up for that again, just so you guys can join me all week in June for Blazing into Summer. You guys like Mr. Daniel Roth, don't you? Come see me on Wednesday with Mr. Daniel Roth. We'll talk about PWAs. Mr. Magoo, if you're still there, you don't need to bother. We know you know it all. Yeah, definitely, Steve. I'd love to do a co-stream sometime. It's going to be a little while because of this event, but I'd love to after the event is over. That'd be great. Trying to add a Blazor WASM page to an existing ASP.NET Core app. Ooh, that's frightening. You're Franken apping, and it works. You can do it. It works. You can do it.
Oh, is that what you want? Yep. Because that's how you get ants.
Yay. You're gonna get ants, my friend. It works together. It was meant to work together. It needs a little more time to mature. Mr. Magoo was here, Peter. He was here very early though. He bailed out. I remember because his name is in bright green. Yours is in like a stale blue color on my screen anyway. But I remember seeing him at the top of the show. So I think he did leave early, but he kind of does that. Have you added a Blazor WASM as a standalone page by itself in another app? Not my experience. Doesn't work. Standalone page in another app. No, I did a while back. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you may be able to find it. It's going to be a little out of date. There are things that do not work. So let me see if I can find this real quick. Code behind. Hot questions. More hot questions. Mixing Razor pages. Here we go. I've got a link for you. I will warn you, it is long. It is a long show, Steve. But you can skim through that. I'll give you the TLDR, though. Fritz is always doing an 8-hour workshop. That guy never sleeps, man. He's always building something. He's going to be joining me soon, too. Here's the deal, Steve. If you watch that video, you'll see I run into a little mental breakdown at the end. What happens is with Razor Pages or MVC, doesn't really matter. You're mixing a system that generates HTML, stateless like HTML, and you're mixing a component model that is kind of reactive to the DOM abstraction. So you got two different architectures trying to coincide in the same space. They do not play well together. So what ends up happening is you have MVC or Razor Pages that wants to serve an entire HTML static view down to the client, and then you're going to manipulate that HTML with jQuery or hopefully Vue, if you're trying to be a little more modern about that approach. Vue is a much better choice than jQuery, but I digress. Most people are going to use jQuery just because that's the standard practice, and you're manipulating the DOM. So you click a button, you're going to find a component by its CSS class or its ID. You're going to rip it out. You're going to work on it. You're going to put it back. You're going to re-render the whole DOM. That doesn't play well with Blazor. Now, Blazor has an abstraction of the DOM, so it's got it's got like a photocopy of an object graph that represents the DOM, and it does all its work in there, and then it shoots one change out to the DOM and says update these things. So you've got these two modes now that you're trying to collide together in Razor Pages, MVC, and Blazor. And what happens is if you have a model binding in a view, so I pass, say, an employee to the view, and it populates the first name, last name, so on, and then I have a component on the page that is supposed to change something with that. That component updates the virtual DOM, and it doesn't know about the raw HTML that the server has spit out on the page, and it can't update the raw HTML. It just can't. It doesn't know it's there. It's outside of the scope of Blazor. So you end up with the option of rewriting the entire page in Blazor, or not having any interaction and doing read-only components with Blazor that don't do anything. So it ends up like being a conflict of interest over what's responsible for updating the page. And at that point, you're kind of just lost, and you either have to choose one or the other. So you either choose to render the entire page with MVC and do jQuery, or you choose to render the entire page with Blazor and use the component model, or you can render the page using templates, and then the interactive piece is Blazor, and that's about as much as you can mix together. So once you hit that, it's pretty bad. Yeah, it's not a great experience. I wouldn't suggest it to anybody. Just if you're migrating, then start migrating the entire page. Take the page that you intended to mix and match, rewrite that page from scratch just using Blazor. So you're basically just taking MVC and routing somebody to a Blazor application and a standalone page. But I see you got to go, so take care. Yeah, it's not great. You can fast forward through the video and pick out little parts, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Supplies that you're using JavaScript with components with no, that's not what I'm saying. So Steve was saying he's trying to mix MVC with Blazor, and if you try to mix a Blazor view and a Razor page, Razor component, you lose kind of the context between Blazor and MVC. They don't have a communication channel between the two, so you can't call like state has changed and change something that MVC has generated as a view. It just doesn't do anything. You just can't find it. It's outside of. It's like trying to use Blazor to change the title of your page. Same concept. Anything that was generated in an MVC view is just outside the reach of Blazor. You could use JavaScript as an interop, but by that point, like I said, you might as well hang it up and just choose to route to a Blazor application. Yeah, it's a total cluster. Let's just say that. So for the folks that just joined me, I don't know if I ever pasted this in. I'll paste it one more time because I'm happy this is happening. Yes, correct, Chicken Wing. So if the DOM is modified by Blazor in a Razor view, then Blazor is completely unaware that it's updated. So there's no way to keep the two things in sync. So check out that link. make sure you bookmark this stuff, sign up for the webinar, all that good stuff. Monday, we're going to do a complete review of Blazor from scratch. If you know nothing about Blazor, that is your time to jump in and check out what's happening. Tuesday, we're going to go full stack. We'll rebuild some of the views that you saw today. I kind of gave you the highlights of that, but we didn't really like build it. We're going to build some of it in the webinar. So it'll be a little more laser focused. We're going to take and move this app to PWA. Daniel Roth's going to help me with that on Wednesday. These will be on the Code It Live channel, by the way. You can add them directly to your calendar here. We'll talk Blazor authentication with Chris Santi on Thursday. Again, Code It Live channel, bookmark it. Friday on the C# Fritz channel, Fritz and Friends. I'm going to join Mr. Fritz, and we're going to dig through some NPM, or some, almost said NPM. Ouch. Naming things is hard. NPM, NuGet, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to explore some NuGet packages on Friday. Jeff and I, we're going to see what's out there, look at some of the cool stuff, add some things to projects, and see what we can do with really cool Blazor frameworks that are out there. NuGet packages, fun stuff, helpful things. I don't want to give anything away. It's going to be a good Friday. So that's the first week of June. That is Blazing into Summer, sponsored by yours truly, Telerik. Blazor with Azure AD, OAuth, or we're going to use the built-in identity framework. So ASP.NET Identity. That should give us a good idea of where we can go with authentication. We should probably do a raid. Let's do a raid so we can get some food. I need to get some food bad. But I mean, one last time, Blazing into Summer. How good is that? Isn't that awesome? Like a full week. What do you think, Dolores?
Have you ever seen anything so full of splendor?
Dolores agrees. Join me in a week. Not next week, the following week. It'll be fun. All right, let's see. Where is my raid button? Let me get the raid going. We're going to go raid some folks. I don't know who yet. We'll go find somebody. We got 33 viewers. That is awesome. Appreciate it, everybody. Catch you later, Mr. Peter Morris Magoo. See what I did there? Raid a channel. Thanks for all the new follows, by the way. They're coming in so fast I can't read them all. Let's do a quick shout out though. Why can't we have names I can pronounce? Swalware, Don Ronson. Don Ronson. Thanks for the follow. Wolfswain, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Do so the Dolphin, thank you for the follow. I think that's everybody that I haven't mentioned before. So until next stream, my friend, appreciate the follows, and I also appreciate the subscription today. Very, very much appreciated. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Let's see. We've got... It's been a while since I've rated Mr. Fritz. He's doing a workshop. He's been on all day. Let's go jump over and see what he's talking about. So we'll queue up. He's got a big audience over there too, so this will help a lot. This will give him a full almost 200 viewers if we go over there and raid. So say hi to Mr. Fritz for me, and have a great weekend, and thanks again for joining me on this. Oh, he's building the pizza app, huh? Good deal. Go say hello to him. Take care.